I'd seen the forged signature on the marriage addendum less than 10 minutes ago, before Valerio Valenti walked into the room, and now his presence was making it hard to breathe for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. The air changed first. Conversations died mid-sentence. My father's business partner, Marco, straightened so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Even Solène, my stepsister, who'd been smirking at me from across the conference table, went pale. Then he appeared in the doorway. Tall, dark suit that moved like water, face carved from something colder than marble. But it was the way he looked at the room that hit me first, like he was cataloging every person, every exit, every potential threat in the span of a single breath. My heart slammed against my ribs. Heat flooded my skin. I hated my body for the reaction, hated that I couldn't control it, but I kept my feet planted and my hands steady on the documents in front of me. His gaze swept the room and landed on me, held. My throat went tight. Every instinct screamed to look away, to make myself smaller, invisible, the way I'd perfected over years of being my father's ghost employee. But I'd spent the last 30 seconds staring at Solène's clumsy forgery work, at the addendum that shouldn't exist, and something in me refused to flinch. Althea Moretti. His voice was low, controlled, and it landed somewhere below my stomach. Not a question, a confirmation. Yes, I was proud my voice didn't shake. He moved into the room. 2 men followed, silent, dangerous, flanking. But I couldn't look at them. Valerio Valenti took up all the available air. You're aware of the terms. It wasn't a question either, but I answered anyway. I am now. His eyes narrowed fractionally. Now? I lifted the addendum, kept my hand from trembling through sheer force of will. This document was filed with your office 3 hours ago. I saw it for the first time 8 minutes ago. Althea! My father's voice cracked. He was in the chair at the head of the table, looking grayer than he had this morning, one hand pressed to his chest. The heart medication wasn't working anymore. We both knew it. Don't, I didn't take my eyes off Valerio. Papa, don't. Valerio moved closer. 3 steps. He stopped at the opposite end of the table, and even with 6 feet of polished wood between us, I felt the heat of him. Explain, he said. The original pact named Solène as collateral. I kept my voice level, clinical. This was what I was good at. Finding the errors, tracing the problems, speaking in facts when everyone else was drowning in emotion. This addendum replaces her name with mine, but the signature authenticating the change isn't my father's. Silence. Solène made a small noise. That's insane. Papa signed. He didn't. I met Valerio's gaze. The loop on the capital M is wrong. He signs with a closed loop. This one's open. And the date? I tilted the paper toward the light. The ink is fresh. Less than 6 hours old. Valerio's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his stillness. He looked at one of his men. Dante. The man moved forward, took the document from my hands. His fingers brushed mine, just contact, nothing more, but I felt Valerio's attention sharpen on the point of touch like a blade. Dante studied the addendum for 10 seconds. She's right. Recent ink, the seal's authentic, but the signature's off. Valerio's gaze cut to Solène. She went white. This is ridiculous. Why would I? Because the shipment hit happened last night, I said quietly. And the pact clause triggers immediately upon evidence of breach. You knew they'd come for collateral within 24 hours. I watched her face, watched the micro-expressions I'd learned to read after years of living in a house where my stepmother and her daughter treated me like a particularly useful piece of furniture. Guilt, panic, and underneath it, calculation. She'd done this, forged the addendum, thrown me into the fire to save herself. The shipment, Valerio said. His voice was quieter now, and somehow that made it worse. 300 kilos, port access logged under Moretti Logistics credentials. Security footage shows your father's keycard, his entry code. He wasn't there. I forced myself to keep meeting his eyes, even though my pulse was screaming. Papa's been home for 2 weeks. Doctor's orders, complete bed rest after the procedure. That's not what the logs show. Then someone used his credentials. Who? The question hung in the air like a blade. I didn't have an answer, not yet. But I could feel the shape of it, the pattern that didn't fit, the clean precision of a setup. I don't know, I said, but I can find out. Valerio tilted his head fractionally. Can you? It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Give me access to the port logs, the security footage, the internal keycard records for the last month. I'll map the pattern. Why would I do that? Because you don't actually think my father betrayed you. I held his gaze. If you did, we'd already be dead. Silence stretched. My father made a small, broken sound. Solène was frozen, her face a mask of badly concealed terror. Valerio studied me. I felt his attention like a physical thing, heavy, assessing, impossibly focused. Then he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. You're clever, he said softly. That's dangerous. So is making deals with people you haven't vetted. I shouldn't have said it. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to shut up, to make myself small and harmless. But I was so tired of being invisible, of fixing everyone's disasters while they took credit or blamed me when things fell apart. And some reckless part of me wanted to see what he'd do. His smile widened fractionally. Dante, Marco, out. The room emptied in seconds. My father tried to stand, but Valerio's gaze flicked to him and he sank back into his chair. Then we were alone. Me, Valerio, Solène, and my father. Valerio moved, not toward me, toward Solène. She made a small noise and tried to back away, but he was faster. He stopped 6 inches from her, and I watched her crumble under the weight of his presence. Did you forge the document? His voice was almost gentle. No, I didn't. Wrong answer, she broke. It wasn't supposed to, I didn't think. You didn't think I'd notice. He leaned in fractionally. Or you didn't think I'd care. Julian said. She stopped, clamped her mouth shut. My stomach dropped. Julian, Valerio's half-brother, the gentle one, people said. The one who smiled easily and never seemed to carry the weight of the family's sins. Valerio went very still. What did Julian say? His voice was soft, lethal. Solène was crying now. He said it didn't matter which sister, as long as the pact was honored. He said you'd accept the substitution. He said you'd be safe. Valerio's voice was flat. And you believed him. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Valerio straightened, turned to look at me. It appears, he said quietly, that we've both been maneuvered. My pulse was everywhere, throat, wrists, low in my stomach where his voice seemed to settle. The shipment hit was engineered. Yes. To trigger the pact clause. Yes. And the addendum was meant to ensure I took you instead of her. His gaze held mine. The question is why. I had theories. None of them were good. I need 48 hours, I said. Access to your records and my father's files. I can map whoever set this up. No. The word hit like a door slamming shut. The pact clause is active, Valerio continued. A breach occurred. Collateral is required immediately. He paused. The wedding is tonight. My father made a wounded sound. Please, take me instead. Althea has nothing to do with... She has everything to do with it. Valerio's gaze didn't leave mine. Whoever orchestrated this wanted her specifically, which means she's either the target or the key. He moved closer. 1 step. 2. I'm going to find out which. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the exact shade of his eyes, dark amber, almost gold in the light. Close enough that when he spoke, I felt the vibration of his voice in my chest. Here are your terms, he said quietly. You marry me tonight. You move into my home. You help me identify who engineered the shipment hit and why they wanted you in my house. And my father, protected, medical care, legal shield, no one touches him. His business remains operational under your oversight. I'll place my own security, but the management stays with your family. I processed quickly, looking for the traps. And after we find who set this up? That depends on what we find. Not good enough. My voice was steady. I need guarantees. His mouth curved fractionally. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then you're not in a position to use me as bait. I held his gaze. Because that's what this is. You want whoever's moving against you to think they've won. You want them close enough to expose themselves. And you need me cooperative, not terrified. Silence. Then. What do you want? A real contract, in writing, my father's medical care and legal protections regardless of what we uncover. And I swallowed hard. Boundaries. Boundaries. This is a business arrangement. I'll play the role. I'll work the problem. But I'm not. Heat flooded my face. I'm not property. Something flickered in his expression. Not anger. Something worse. Interest. Noted, he said softly. Anything else? If I prove my father's innocent, you clear his name publicly. Agreed. And I want access to everything. Files, footage, financial records, personnel logs. If I'm hunting a traitor, I need to see the whole board. His eyes gleamed. You understand that makes you dangerous to me. You're already dangerous to me. My heart was slamming against my ribs, but I didn't look away. At least this way we're even. Even. He said it like the word amused him. You think a contract makes us even, but you just signed yourself into my world, Althea. Legally, completely. His smile sharpened. I'll take that trade. He pulled out his phone and opened a draft that was already waiting. Valenti legal language, clean and cold. Speak, he said. Your terms. I did. Fast. Precise. His thumb moved in short, decisive taps, editing, inserting, locking clauses into place. Then he handed it to me. A contract. Simple, direct. Everything I'd asked for in clean legal language. I read it twice, looking for the traps I knew had to be there. But the language was clear. Protection for my father, access to records, boundaries clause, public exoneration contingent on proof of innocence. It gave me everything I'd demanded, which meant it gave him something too. Sign it, he said. We have 3 hours before the ceremony. I looked at my father. He was crying silently, one hand pressed to his chest. I looked at Solène, who was still frozen in her chair, ruined and small. Then I looked at the document in my hands. The signature line was blank. Waiting. I should have been terrified. I should have run. Instead, I took the phone and signed my name. Valerio's smile was slow, predatory, and entirely satisfied. Welcome to the family, Althea. The wedding wasn't in a church. It was in Valerio's study, all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Tyrrhenian Sea. The officiant was a nervous man who spoke too fast and wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. The witnesses were Dante and a woman Valerio introduced as his attorney, Julia, who looked at me with something between pity and assessment. My father wasn't there. Valerio had sent him home with a doctor and 2 guards. For his protection, he'd said. And I hadn't argued because my father's face had been gray and his breathing shallow. Solène wasn't there either. I didn't ask where she'd gone. It was just me in a dress Julia had produced from somewhere, simple, cream-colored, expensive. And Valerio in the same dark suit, standing close enough that I could feel the heat of him through the fabric. The officiant said words. I heard maybe half of them. Valerio's hand took mine. His palm was warm, his grip firm but not crushing. When he slid the ring onto my finger, platinum, flawless, clearly prepared in advance, I felt the weight of it like a shackle. You may kiss the bride. Valerio's gaze met mine, held for 3 seconds. Then he leaned in and pressed his mouth to my forehead. Brief, chaste, almost gentle. It felt like a promise and a threat wrapped together. Done, he said quietly. To me or to the room, I wasn't sure. The officiant fled. Julia handed me a folder, your copies of everything, and disappeared. Dante remained by the door, silent and watchful. Valerio released my hand and moved to the desk, pulled out his phone. Your father's been moved to a private facility in Como. Cardiac specialists, round-the-clock care. You'll have access anytime. I should have said thank you. Instead, where's Solène? On a plane to Malta. She'll stay there until this is resolved. You're protecting her. I'm removing a liability. He set the phone down, turned to face me fully. She was a tool, stupid, easily manipulated, but not the architect. Julian is. There it was again. His brother's name, said with no visible emotion. You don't seem surprised, I said carefully. I'm not. Valerio moved to the windows, looked out at the water. Julian's been making moves for 2 years. Small things, personnel changes, route adjustments. Nothing I could prove, but enough to make me watch. Then why didn't you stop him? He was quiet for a moment. Because he's my brother. Because our mother asked me to protect him before she died. Because I kept thinking. He stopped. It doesn't matter what I thought. I moved closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to see the tension in his shoulders. He set me up. Used Solen to forge documents. Engineered the shipment hit. Made sure the evidence pointed at my father so the pact would trigger and I'd end up here. Yes. Why me specifically? Valerio turned. His eyes were hard, focused. That's what we're going to find out. He moved past me to the desk, unlocked a drawer, and pulled out a tablet. Port access logs for the last 3 months. Security footage, financial transfers, personnel schedules, everything you asked for. I took the tablet. The weight of it felt significant, like he was handing me a weapon. Where do I work? Here, my office. He gestured to the desk. Massive, organized, expensive. You'll have access to my systems, my files. Julia will set up your credentials. You trust me that much? His mouth curved slightly. No, but I'm very good at tracking what people do with access. And you're smart enough to know that. If you betray me, your father loses his protection. There it was, the leash, dressed up as partnership. Understood, I said quietly. Good. He checked his watch. Dante will show you to your room. You have 2 hours before dinner. My room? Did you think we'd be sharing? His tone was almost amused. Heat flooded my face. The contract said, boundaries. I remember. He moved closer. 1 step. I held my ground. But we're married now, Althea. Legally, publicly. Which means everyone in this house, everyone in my organization, everyone who might be watching, they need to believe this is real. My pulse kicked. What does that mean? It means you don't flinch when I touch you. You don't pull away when I stand too close. When we're in public, you play the role. His gaze dropped briefly to my mouth, then back to my eyes. In private, the boundaries hold, unless you change the terms. I won't. We'll see. He stepped back, giving me space I suddenly didn't want. Dante. The door opened. Dante appeared, expressionless. Show my wife to the East Wing. Make sure she has everything she needs. My wife. The words landed like a brand. I followed Dante out. The room was beautiful, huge. All cream and gold, with another wall of windows overlooking the sea and a bathroom that could have held my entire apartment back home. A phone sat on the nightstand. New, sleek, clearly expensive. I picked it up. 1 contact already programmed. Valerio. And a message waiting. The room is secure. You can speak freely here. Work on the tablet. Call if you need anything. My office is directly below yours. West corner of the main house. I moved to the window and looked down. Sure enough, I could see the glow of lights from the floor below. His office still illuminated even though it was late afternoon. He could see my window from there, would know if I was awake, working, pacing. The thought should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like being watched over. I sat on the bed, too soft, too perfect, and opened the tablet. The port logs loaded immediately. 3 months of data, thousands of entries, shipments, personnel, access times, routes. I started mapping. 2 hours disappeared in minutes. The pattern emerged slowly, like a photograph developing in chemicals. Someone had been using my father's credentials for 6 weeks. Always at night, always for specific routes. Always when my father was documented as being elsewhere. The access times were too precise, too clean. Whoever did this knew my father's schedule better than he did. I was cross-referencing the security footage when someone knocked. Come in. A young woman entered, dark hair, nervous smile, carrying a garment bag. Signora Valenti, I'm Lucia. I'm here to help you dress for dinner. Signora Valenti. The name felt foreign. I can dress myself. Of course, but Signor Valenti asked me to bring options. She hung the garment bag on the closet door. Dinner is formal. Family will be attending. My stomach dropped. Family? Signor Julian and his guest. Lucia's expression was carefully neutral. Among others, Julian, here, tonight. I stood, moved to the garment bag, unzipped it. 3 dresses, all beautiful, all clearly chosen to send a message. You belong here now. I picked the simplest, midnight blue, fitted but not tight. Elegant without being flashy. Good choice, Lucia said quietly. It's his favorite color. I looked at her sharply. Whose? She didn't answer. Just helped me with the zipper and left. Dinner was in a formal dining room that could have seated 20. Tonight there were 8. Valerio sat at the head. I was placed to his right, the position of honor or the position of ownership, depending on how you looked at it. Julian sat to his left. He was beautiful, lighter than Valerio, warm brown eyes, easy smile, the kind of face that made you want to trust him. When he stood to greet me, his handshake was gentle, his voice soft. Althea, welcome to the family. He sounded genuinely pleased. I'm so glad Valerio finally found someone worthy of him. Thank you. I kept my voice neutral, pleasant. Valerio's hand found the small of my back. Light pressure, possessive. Sit, Cara. I sat. His hand lingered a moment before withdrawing. The others were introduced quickly. Julia the attorney, 2 men whose names I immediately forgot, and Julian's guest, a woman named Isabel, who looked at everyone like she was cataloging them for later use. Valerio's hand moved to my thigh under the table. I went still. His palm was warm through the fabric of the dress. The touch was high enough to be intimate, firm enough to be deliberate, but not aggressive. Just there, claiming. I didn't pull away. I'd promised I wouldn't flinch in public. But my pulse was screaming. So, Julian said, smiling at me across the table, how did you 2 meet? Valerio's been so secretive. Business arrangement, Valerio said before I could answer. Her father's logistics operation handles our port routes. Ah, romantic. Julian's smile widened. And the wedding was so sudden, almost like it was urgent. Valerio's hand tightened fractionally on my thigh. The opportunity presented itself. I don't waste time. Clearly, Julian's gaze slid to me. You must be very special, Althea. Valerio doesn't usually move this fast. I met his eyes, saw the calculation underneath the charm. I fix problems, I said quietly. He had one. I solved it. How efficient. Isabel's voice was cool, assessing. What kind of problems? The kind that require attention to detail. I kept my tone light but firm. Patterns, discrepancies, things that don't add up. Valerio's thumb moved in a slow circle on my thigh. Approval or warning, I couldn't tell. She's being modest, he said. She has a gift for seeing what others miss. Julian raised his glass. Then you're a perfect match. Valerio never misses anything. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Valerio raised his own glass. To family. Everyone echoed the toast. I drank, tasting nothing. Under the table, Valerio's hand moved higher. Not far. Just enough to make his point. Mine. In public, you're mine. I set down my glass with steady hands and placed my own hand over his, stopping the movement. His fingers stilled. Then, slowly, he threaded them through mine. Held. It felt like a negotiation conducted in silence. Julian watched us with bright, interested eyes. After dinner, Valerio guided me to a sitting room, smaller, more intimate, with a fireplace and comfortable chairs. You did well, he said. He knows. I turned to face him. Julian. He knows this isn't a real marriage. He's testing to see how far the performance goes. He's always testing. Valerio moved to the sideboard, poured 2 glasses of something amber. That's who he is. He handed me a glass. Our fingers brushed. The contact sparked. I found something, I said. In the logs. His attention sharpened. Show me. I pulled out my phone, the secure one he'd given me, and opened the analysis I'd built. Someone's been using my father's credentials for 6 weeks, always at night, always specific routes. But look at the timing. I zoomed in on the pattern. Every access happens exactly 3 minutes after the security shift change. And the routes. I swiped to the next screen. They're all high-value shipments, but they're not being stolen. They're being marked. Marked? Small discrepancies, a few kilos off, documentation errors, nothing big enough to trigger immediate investigation, but enough to build a pattern of negligence. I looked up at him. Someone was building a case against my father, slowly, methodically, and then they hit the final shipment hard to trigger the pact. Valerio studied the screen. His expression was unreadable. "This takes access," he said finally. "Deep access, security codes, shift schedules, route planning. Yes. That's executive-level clearance. Yes." His jaw tightened. "Julian. Or someone working for him." I pulled up another screen. But there's something else. The routes that were marked, they all connect to a single distribution network. One I can't trace. It's not in your system. "Show me." I handed him the phone. He studied it for a long moment. Then his expression went cold. "That's not mine," he said quietly. "That's a shadow operation. Someone's been running shipments through my ports using my infrastructure, but keeping the profits off the books. How much? Millions, maybe more." He looked at me. "How long would it take you to map the full network? With the right access? 2 days, maybe 3. You have it, whatever you need." I nodded. Then, "Why is he doing this, Julian? If he wants power, why not just ask for it?" Valerio's smile was bitter. "Because I already told him no, 3 times. He's not ready. He's too impulsive, too emotional, too willing to take shortcuts." He drained his glass. "So he's taking it anyway. And the marriage? Me? Your leverage. Either to control me through your father or..." He stopped. "Or what?" His gaze met mine. "Or to prove I'm compromised, distracted, weak." The word hung between us. "Are you?" I asked quietly. "Distracted?" He moved closer, 1 step, 2. Close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his eyes, smell the subtle scent of his cologne. "Yes," he said softly. "You're brilliant and brave, and you look at me like you're not afraid, even though you should be." His hand came up, fingers brushing my jaw. "And that makes you the most dangerous person in this house." My breath caught. His thumb traced my lower lip, light, questioning. I should have stepped back, should have reminded him of the boundaries. Instead, I held still. "Valerio." "I know." His hand dropped. "The terms hold, unless you change them." He stepped back, giving me space. I felt the absence of his touch like cold water. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow we dig deeper." "Where will you be?" "My office, directly below you." His smile was slight, predatory. "I'm always close, Althea." He left. I stood alone in the sitting room, pulse racing, body humming with want I couldn't afford. I touched my lip where his thumb had been. This was supposed to be business. It was becoming something else entirely. I worked until 3 in the morning. The shadow network was bigger than I'd thought. More routes, more money, more connections threading through Valerio's legitimate operations like a parasite. And every thread led back to one name, Julian. But there was something else. Something that didn't fit. The forged addendum. Selene had been sloppy with the signature, but the legal language was perfect. Too perfect for someone like her. Someone had written it for her. Someone who knew contract law, who understood the pact's exact wording, who could craft an addendum that would hold up under scrutiny. I pulled up the document again, studied the phrasing, and saw it. 3 phrases that matched exactly, word for word, with documents in Valerio's own files, documents written by his attorney, Julia. My stomach went cold. I cross-referenced the dates. The shadow network transactions started appearing in the system 18 months ago, right after Julia had filed incorporation papers for 3 shell companies, all linked to offshore accounts, all using routing numbers that connected back to Julian's hidden distribution network. She hadn't just helped with the forged addendum. She'd been building Julian's empire inside Valerio's organization for over a year. I grabbed my phone, pulled up Valerio's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. If I was wrong, I'd be accusing his most trusted advisor. If I was right, light flooded my room. I spun, Valerio stood in the doorway, still dressed, looking like he hadn't slept either. "I saw your light from my office," he said, stepping inside and closing the door. "Couldn't sleep either. I found something." My voice came out rough. "Something bad." He crossed to me in 3 strides. "Show me." I handed him the phone, watched his face as he read. His expression went very still. Then he scrolled through the evidence, the matching phrasing, the incorporation papers, the timeline of transactions. "You're certain?" His voice was quiet, controlled. "The phrasing is identical. 3 separate clauses. And the shell companies. She filed them personally. The timeline matches exactly. Julia's been with me for 8 years. The shadow network only goes back 18 months. I pulled up the transaction history. Before that, she was clean. Whatever Julian offered her, whatever he promised, it worked a year and a half ago. Or he's been blackmailing her." Valerio's jaw tightened. "Either way, she's been helping him steal from me, hide his operation, and when the time came, she helped him forge the documents that brought you here." He looked at me, really looked. "If this is true," he said quietly, "then no one in my organization is safe. Everyone's loyalty is suspect. Except mine." The words came out before I could stop them. He studied me for a long moment. "Except yours." The air between us felt charged, dangerous. "What do we do?" I asked. "We don't confront her. Not yet." He moved closer, and I didn't step back. "We need more proof. Hard evidence. Enough to take to the family council and prove what Julian's been doing. The distribution records. If we can trace the money back to its source, we can prove conspiracy." He nodded. "Can you do it?" "Yes, but I'll need help. Someone I can trust to access the physical records at the port. The digital trail only goes so far. Someone's been scrubbing the system. But paper records can't be erased as easily." "Dante, are you sure?" "He's one of 3 people I trust completely." Valerio's mouth curved slightly. "You're another." My heart kicked hard. "I'm a stranger you married a few hours ago. You're a woman who could have lied to save herself and didn't. Who negotiated terms instead of begging. Who's been working to protect her father while half the people in this house would sell their own family for a fraction of what's at stake." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "I trust you because you've given me no reason not to." His hand lingered at my jaw. I should have pulled away. I didn't. "This is a bad idea," I whispered. "The worst." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "But I stopped being smart the moment you looked at me in that conference room and refused to be afraid." "I was terrified." "I know, but you didn't show it." He leaned in fractionally. "You're still not showing it." My pulse was everywhere. "The boundaries are yours to set. Always." His voice was rough. "Tell me to leave, Althea. I will." I should have sent him away, kept this professional, kept the lines clear. Instead, I gripped the front of his shirt. "Don't leave." His eyes went dark. "Be sure." "I'm sure." He closed the distance. His mouth found mine, hot, demanding, but controlled. One hand cupped my face, the other wrapped around my waist, pulling me against him. I kissed him back, pouring 18 hours of tension and fear and want into the contact. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "Althea, don't apologize." I was still gripping his shirt. "Don't you dare apologize." His smile was slow, dangerous. I was going to say, "We should stop." "Should we?" "Yes." But he didn't move away. "Because if we don't stop now, I won't be able to." I looked up at him, saw the restraint in every line of his body, the control that was costing him. "Then don't stop," I said. His control shattered. I woke to early morning light and an empty bed. 7 a.m. 4 hours of sleep. The sheets beside me were cold. Valerio had been gone for hours. But there was a note on the pillow, written in precise, controlled handwriting. "Dante is waiting downstairs. He'll take you to the port for the physical records. Stay with him. Don't trust anyone else." I reached for my phone on the nightstand. 3 missed calls from the Como facility, all time-stamped between 3 and 4 a.m. My stomach dropped. I called back immediately. "Signora Valenti," the head nurse sounded stressed. "We tried to reach you last night. Your father had an episode. His heart rate spiked to dangerous levels. We couldn't get authorization for the emergency medication protocol because we couldn't reach you or Signor Valenti. My throat went tight. He's stable now, but we had to wait 20 minutes for the on-call doctor to authorize treatment. 20 minutes that could have. She stopped. He's fine, but please, Signora, keep your phone accessible. I closed my eyes, guilt flooding through me. 20 minutes. My father could have died while I understand, I managed. It won't happen again. I hung up and sat there, hands shaking, staring at the missed calls. The price of distraction, the cost of choosing desire over vigilance. I showered quickly, the hot water doing nothing to wash away the guilt. When I dressed, dark pants and a simple shirt, clothes that wouldn't draw attention, my hands were steady again. Compartmentalized. Focused. My father was alive. That was what mattered. And I had work to do. When I came downstairs, Dante was in the entrance hall, holding a secure case and wearing an expression that suggested he'd been briefed on everything. Signora, he nodded once. The car is ready. Call me Althea. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. The boss said you'd say that. We were halfway to the port when my phone rang. Valerio's number. Yes? There's been an incident. His voice was controlled, but I heard the edge underneath. Someone tried to access your father's facility in Como 2 hours ago. My stomach dropped. He's fine. Security stopped them at the entrance. But Althea, he paused. They had forged credentials, medical clearance papers with my signature, claiming they were transferring him to a different facility. Julian, almost certainly. I heard movement on his end, voices in the background. I'm handling it. The man who tried to gain access is currently in a very uncomfortable conversation with my security team. What will you do to him? Nothing permanent, but he'll wake up in a hospital with injuries he won't forget, and a sudden desire to leave the country. Valerio's voice hardened. And his employer, whoever hired him, will find their accounts frozen, their properties under investigation, and their business licenses mysteriously revoked. By tomorrow, they won't be able to buy a cup of coffee without triggering an alert. You said no killing. I don't need to kill to destroy someone. There was something almost gentle in his tone. Your father is safe. I've tripled security at the facility. No one gets within 100 meters without my personal authorization. And Althea, I'm sorry about last night. The missed calls. If I'd had my phone on... You didn't know. I should have. His voice dropped lower. I got distracted. By you. And that put your father at risk. We both got distracted. I closed my eyes briefly. The nurse said he's stable. He is. I've already spoken to his doctors. They're adjusting his medication protocol, adding monitoring equipment. This won't happen again, he paused. But this is what happens now, Althea. You're mine in the eyes of everyone who wants to hurt me. They'll keep coming. I know. And you're still going to the port to gather evidence. Yes, I heard the smile in his voice. Good. Dante will keep you safe. And Althea, his voice dropped even lower, intimate despite the phone line between us. About last night. Don't. I cut him off, feeling heat flood my face even though he couldn't see me. Don't apologize. Don't regret it. Just don't. Silence. Then, I was going to say, I want to do it again. Properly. Without the world falling apart around us. My pulse kicked hard. So do I. Then we will. When this is over. When you're safe and Julian's contained and we can... He stopped. Finish the investigation. I'll handle the rest. Valerio. He hung up, leaving me breathless and flushed in the back of Dante's car. Dante glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his expression carefully neutral. Everything all right? Someone tried to take my father. His expression darkened. Not anymore, they didn't. Valerio stopped them. He would. Dante's voice was matter of fact. The boss doesn't make promises he won't keep. It's the one thing you can count on with him. If he says you're protected, you're protected. And anyone who tries to prove otherwise learns exactly how creative he can be with consequences. We drove in silence for a moment. Then, how long have you worked for him? 12 years, since I was 19. Dante's eyes met mine in the mirror. He pulled me out of a situation that should have killed me. Gave me a choice, work for him or disappear. I chose work, never regretted it. Even knowing what he does? Especially knowing what he does. Dante's voice was firm. The boss has lines, rules, things he won't cross. Not everyone in this world does. You'd be surprised how rare that is. We pulled up to the port, massive, industrial, crawling with workers and security. Dante handed me a badge. This gets you into the administrative building. Records are in the basement, 3 levels down. I'll be with you the entire time. What are we looking for? Paper manifests for the shadow network routes. Someone's been scrubbing the digital system, but physical documents are harder to erase, especially if they're buried in legitimate shipments. He opened the car door. We find the paper trail. We prove Julian's been stealing. And once we prove theft, we can build the rest of the case. The records room was exactly as depressing as I'd imagined. Fluorescent lights, rows of filing cabinets, the smell of old paper and mildew. Dante stationed himself at the door while I started pulling files. 3 months of manifests, thousands of shipments. But I knew what to look for now. The routes that connected to Julian's shadow network. The discrepancies that marked my father as negligent. The precise timing that proved coordination. I worked fast, photographing pages with my phone, building the evidence file, and then I found it. A manifest dated 6 weeks ago, the first marked shipment. But there was something attached to it. A memo, handwritten, paper clipped to the back. Route confirmed. Substitution approved. Payment on delivery. GG Julia. My hands shook as I photographed it. This was proof. Direct, undeniable proof that she'd been coordinating with whoever was running the shadow operation. Althea, Dante's voice was sharp. We have company. I looked up. 3 men had entered the records room. Not port security. I could tell by the way they moved, the way they positioned themselves to block the exits. Julian's men. Signora Valenti, the one in front smiled. It wasn't friendly. Signor Julian would like a word. I'm busy. It wasn't a request. Dante moved. Fast. He was between me and them before I could blink. One hand inside his jacket where I knew he kept a weapon. The lady's not going anywhere, Dante said quietly. The man's smile widened. Dante, still playing loyal dog for Valerio. How disappointing. How breathing, Dante corrected, which is more than you'll be doing if you take another step. Julian just wants to talk to her, clear up some misunderstandings. Then Julian can call her, make an appointment, go through proper channels. Dante's voice was flat. What he doesn't get to do is send muscle to intimidate the boss's wife in a basement records room. We're not here to intimidate. The man's gaze shifted to me. We're here to remind her that family loyalty matters, and right now she's investigating family. That's complicated. I stepped forward, ignoring Dante's warning hand. I'm investigating theft, fraud, conspiracy. If Julian has something to say about that, he can say it to Valerio. Valerio's compromised. The man's tone was almost pitying. Everyone can see it. He married a stranger to cover up her father's theft, and now she's got him chasing shadows while the real problems go unsolved. The real problem, I said clearly, is that someone's been running a shadow network through Valerio's ports for 18 months, stealing millions, and I'm about to prove exactly who. The man's expression hardened. You should be careful, Signora. Accidents happen, even in secure facilities, even to cardiac patients who've recently had procedures, especially when their daughters aren't answering their phones in the middle of the night. My blood went cold. He knew. He knew about the missed calls, the episode, the 20-minute window. Julian had been watching, waiting, and he'd tried to exploit the exact moment I was distracted. Dante's gun was out before I could process it. Not pointing, just visible. A promise. That's enough, Dante said. You've delivered your message. Now leave before I deliver mine. The 3 men exchanged glances. Then slowly, they backed toward the door. Tell Signor Julian, I called out, my voice steady despite the fear and fury coursing through me, that if he wants to threaten my father, he should remember that Valerio doesn't make idle promises. And neither do I. The lead man paused at the door. Brave words. Let's see if you're still that brave when Julian makes his next move. They left. I was shaking. Dante holstered his weapon and turned to me. Are you all right? They knew about last night, about the missed calls. My voice was tight. Julian was watching. He tried to use that window to get to your father, I know. Dante's expression was grim. They were waiting for us here. Someone told them exactly when we'd arrive and where we'd be. Julia, most likely. She has access to the boss's calendar, his communications. She's been feeding Julian intelligence this whole time. I closed my eyes, felt rage replace fear. Then we make sure this evidence destroys them both. Did you get what you needed? Yes. The memo from Julia. Proof of coordination. Good. Then we're gone. We were back in the car, halfway to the estate, when my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Althea. Julian's voice. Smooth, warm, concerned. I heard there was an incident at the port. I wanted to make sure you were all right. My jaw tightened. Your men delivered your message. My men? He sounded genuinely confused. I don't know what you're talking about. What message? The threat about my father, the comment about missed calls. Silence. Then, someone threatened your father? Althea, I swear, I would never. Who were they? Did you get names? He sounded sincere, shocked, almost hurt. I hated that part of me wanted to believe him. How did you get this number? I asked instead. This number? A pause, then a soft laugh. Althea, I'm family. Of course I have access to family contact information. Julia keeps excellent records. She makes sure everyone important has everyone else's numbers, for emergencies. So Julia had given it to him. More proof of her betrayal. I know what you're doing, I said quietly. The shadow network, the theft, the setup. I have proof, Julian. Proof of what? Althea, listen to me. I think you're being manipulated. Someone's feeding you false information to turn you against me, against family. His voice dropped, urgent. We should meet. Talk this through. I can explain everything. There are things about Valerio you don't know. Things he's done. Stop. I cut him off. I'm not meeting you anywhere, and I'm not interested in your explanations. He's using you. Julian's voice hardened just slightly. You're a tool to him. A way to prove he's still in control. But you're smart, Althea. You have to see that. He married you to lock down your silence, to make sure you couldn't testify against him if this all comes out. Comes out. The real theft. The real conspiracy. Julian's voice was soft, persuasive. Did you ever wonder why Valerio was so quick to accept the marriage clause? Why he didn't investigate your father more carefully? Because he's the one who's been running the shadow network, and he needed a scapegoat. Your father was convenient, and now you are too. My mind reeled. That's not. Ask yourself why he gave you access to everything so quickly. Why he trusts you with information he doesn't share with anyone else. Julian paused. It's because he's controlling the narrative, showing you exactly what he wants you to see, making you think you're investigating when really you're just following his script. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Dante glanced at me. What did he say? He tried to flip it. Claimed Valerio's the one running the shadow network. That I'm being used. Classic move. Accuse your enemy of exactly what you're doing. Dante's voice was grim. Did it work? No. But even as I said it, a small voice in my head whispered, but what if? What if I was wrong? What if Julian was telling the truth? I pulled out my phone, looked at the evidence I'd gathered. The manifest with Julia's memo, the timeline, the shell companies. It all pointed to Julian. But Julian was right about one thing. Valerio had given me access very quickly. Had trusted me with information that could destroy him if I chose to use it. Why? When we arrived at the estate, Valerio was waiting in his office. He looked up when I entered, and the relief in his expression was visceral. He was across the room in 3 strides, hands framing my face, eyes searching mine. You're all right, not a question. A confirmation, like he'd been holding his breath. I'm fine, but I leaned into his touch anyway, needing the contact. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Dante told me what happened. Julian's men. The threats. His voice went hard. I'm handling it. I know you are. I pulled back slightly, needing to focus. I got it. I handed him the files. showed him the photographs, the memo from Julia. He studied them in silence, his expression unreadable. But I felt the tension in him, the controlled fury. "This is enough," he said finally. "Combined with what you found in the digital records, it's enough to take to the family council. Prove Julian's been stealing. Prove Julia's been helping him." Julian called me. I watched his face carefully. On the way back, he said you're the one running the shadow network, that you're using me to frame him. Valerio looked up sharply. His hands were still on the files, but his attention was completely on me now. "And you believed him?" "No, but—" I hesitated. "He made a good point. You gave me access to everything very quickly. Trusted me with information that could destroy you. Why?" Valerio set down the files, moved around the desk toward me. "Because I'm gambling," he said quietly. "On you, on your integrity. On the fact that you're smart enough to see through manipulation and brave enough to stand by the truth, even when it's complicated." He stopped in front of me. "Julian's right about one thing. I am using you. But not as a scapegoat, as a witness. Someone outside the family who can testify to what she found without the taint of internal politics. That's a big risk. You're an extraordinary woman." His hand came up, cupped my face. "I trust you because I have to. Because everyone else in my organization might be compromised. Because my own brother has spent 18 months building a case to destroy me. And you're the only person who walked into this with clean hands." I held his gaze, saw the truth in it, the exhaustion, the fear he wouldn't let anyone else see. His thumb traced my jaw, slow and deliberate. "And because when I look at you, I forget to be careful. I forget that trust is a weakness in my world. I forget everything except—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "Except what?" "Except that I want you. Not because of the contract. Not because you're useful." His voice went rough. "Because you're brilliant and fierce and you kiss me like you're claiming me. Not the other way around." Heat flooded through me. "Valerio—" "I know, not the time." But he didn't step back. "What's the next move?" I forced myself to focus, even though his hand was still on my face, even though I could feel the heat of him. "Tomorrow night, family council, we present the evidence. It won't be pleasant. He'll fight back. Try to discredit you, claim you're biased because of the marriage. Let him try." I straightened my shoulders. "I have proof, facts, numbers. He has charm and lies." Valerio smiled. It was fierce, proud. "You're magnificent." He kissed me, hard, possessive, claiming. I kissed him back, pouring everything into it, the fear, the fury, the impossible want. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "After tomorrow," he said, his forehead resting against mine. "This is over. Julian's contained. Julia's dealt with. And you—" His eyes searched mine. "You get to choose. Stay, leave, whatever you want. The contract ends when the threat ends." My heart clenched. "What do you want?" "I want you to stay." His voice was rough, raw. "Not because of a contract. Not because of your father or the investigation or any of the reasons that brought you here. I want you to stay because you want to. Because you choose me. Because when you wake up, you reach for me first. Not because you have to, but because you can't help it." "Valerio—" "Don't answer now." He stepped back, and I felt the loss of his touch like cold water. "Answer after tomorrow, when you've seen how ugly this gets, when you know exactly what staying means, when you understand that my world will always be dangerous, and choosing me means choosing that danger too." He turned back to his desk, picked up the files. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be brutal." I left his office, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. Tomorrow, the family council, the final confrontation. And then, a choice. Stay or go. Love or freedom. Except they weren't opposites anymore. Somehow, impossibly, they'd become the same thing. Because freedom without him felt like a cage. And love, real love, chosen love, was the most dangerous freedom of all. The family council met at 8 p.m. in a room I'd never seen before. It was older than the rest of the estate. Stone walls, heavy wooden doors, a table that looked like it had witnessed a century of deals and deaths. 12 chairs. Tonight, 8 were filled. Valerio sat at the head. I was positioned behind him and to his right, visible but not seated. A witness, not a voting member, exactly as he'd planned. Julian sat halfway down the table, Isabel beside him. He looked calm, almost relaxed, like this was a pleasant dinner rather than a trial. Julia sat near the door, her expression professional and detached. She hadn't looked at me once since I'd entered. The other council members were men I'd been introduced to over the past 2 days. Valerio's captains, his infrastructure, the people who kept his empire running. Dante stood by the wall, silent and watchful. Valerio stood. The room went quiet. We're here because evidence has come to light regarding unauthorized operations running through our ports. His voice was controlled, formal. Operations that have been stealing from this family for 18 months. Tonight we determine who's responsible and what consequences follow. He gestured to me. Althea has been investigating the discrepancies in our shipping manifests. She'll present what she found. All eyes turned to me. I stepped forward, tablet in hand, and began. I laid it out methodically. The shadow network, routes, the marked shipments that built the case against my father, the timing that proved coordination. The shell companies Julia had filed 18 months ago, the offshore accounts, the money trail that led to one person. Julian Valenti has been running a parallel operation through this family's infrastructure, I said clearly, stealing approximately 8 million euros over 18 months, using forged credentials and inside access to hide the theft. I pulled up the photograph of Julia's handwritten memo, projected it on the screen. Route confirmed, substitution approved, payment on delivery. G. This memo was paper-clipped to a manifest dated 6 weeks ago, written by Julia Tesaro, this family's attorney, proof of direct coordination between legal counsel and the shadow operation. The room was silent. Julian stood slowly. His smile was gentle, almost sad. This is heartbreaking, he said quietly. Althea, I understand why you'd want to believe this. Your father was caught stealing. The evidence was clear, and Valerio... He looked at his brother. Valerio offered you a way out. Marry him, investigate on his behalf, and maybe your father goes free. That's not... But the truth is simpler. Julian's voice was soft, persuasive. Valerio has been running the shadow network. He needed a scapegoat when the family started asking questions about missing revenue. Your father was convenient. And when the pact triggered, Valerio saw an opportunity. Marry the daughter, control her investigation. Make sure she only finds evidence pointing away from him. He gestured to the screen. That memo could be about anything. Route confirmed could mean legitimate business. Payment on delivery is standard practice. And G could be anyone. Julia files hundreds of documents. This proves nothing except that Althea is desperate to protect her father by throwing suspicion elsewhere. Murmurs around the table. The shell companies, I said, voice steady. Julia filed them personally. They connect directly to the offshore accounts receiving the stolen money. Shell companies are legal, Julia said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was calm, professional. I file dozens every year for legitimate business purposes. Signor Valerio himself requested several of those filings. If someone used them for unauthorized purposes, that's not my responsibility. She looked at me with something like pity. Signora Valenti is understandably emotional. Her father is implicated in serious theft. She's now married to a man she barely knows. She's looking for answers, and unfortunately, she's seeing conspiracies where there are only coincidences. The timing isn't coincidence. I pulled up the financial records. Every transaction corresponds to a shipment. Every shipment uses credentials that were stolen during security shift changes. The pattern is precise, coordinated, and it only goes back 18 months, exactly when Julian started making personnel changes that gave him access to security protocols. Personnel changes I made with Valerio's approval, Julian said smoothly, because he asked me to handle port security, to modernize our systems. If someone exploited those changes, perhaps we should be asking who benefits most from undermining my work. He looked at Valerio. You've been different since Mother died, paranoid, controlling, seeing threats everywhere. And now you've married a stranger and given her access to everything, our finances, our operations, our vulnerabilities. His voice dropped. The family is worried, Valerio. This isn't like you. And this, he gestured to me. This obsession with proving I'm the enemy. It's concerning. I have proof, I said. You have numbers, Julian corrected gently. Numbers that Valerio gave you access to. Numbers he could have manipulated before you ever saw them. You're brilliant, Althea. Everyone can see that. But brilliance without context is just cleverness. And Valerio is very good at giving people exactly the context he wants them to have. I felt the room shifting, saw doubt flickering in faces that had been certain moments ago. Julian was better at this than I'd expected, smoother, more convincing. There's one way to settle this, Julian said. Julia, you keep copies of everything. Pull the original incorporation documents for those shell companies. Show us who actually requested them. If I'm guilty, my signature will be there. If I'm being framed, he looked at Valerio. We'll see whose name appears instead. Julia stood. I'll need to access the secure archives. It will take a few minutes. Take your time, Julian said. Truth is worth waiting for. She left. The room remained silent, waiting. Valerio's hand found mine behind his chair, squeezed once. A warning or reassurance, I couldn't tell. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then Dante's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his expression went hard. Boss. He moved to Valerio's side, voice low. Julia's not in the archives. Security just spotted her getting into a car. She's running. The room erupted. Valerio was on his feet. Lock down the estate. Nobody leaves. Dante, get me her location. Already tracking. Dante's fingers moved over his phone. She's heading toward the port. Fast. Julian stood slowly, hands raised. I don't understand. Why would Julia run if... He stopped, eyes widening with perfectly calibrated shock. Unless she's the one, not me. Julia was stealing, and she tried to frame me when Althea started investigating. Sit down, Valerio said quietly. Valerio, you can't possibly think I... Sit. Down. Julian sat. But his expression was wounded, betrayed. I grabbed Valerio's arm. It's a play. He knew she'd run. He's using her as the scapegoat now that we have proof. I know, Valerio's voice was grim. Dante, how long until we can intercept? 10 minutes if we leave now. Do it. Take her alive. I want to know who she's running to. Valerio looked at the council. We're adjourned until Julia is secured. Nobody discusses this outside this room. He turned to me, voice dropping. Stay here. Dante will keep you safe. Where are you going? To make sure Julian doesn't disappear the same way Julia just tried to. His hand cupped my face briefly. Trust me. Then he was gone. I stood in that stone room for 20 minutes, watching Julian. He sat calmly, phone on the table in front of him, hands folded, waiting. You're good at this, I said finally. He looked up, smiled slightly. At what? Making people doubt, planting questions, letting them convince themselves. I'm just telling the truth. His voice was gentle. Valerio's been unstable since Mother died. Obsessive, paranoid. He sees enemies everywhere because he can't accept that she's gone. That she asked him to protect me, and he failed her. She asked him to protect you from yourself, I said quietly. Because she knew what you were. Julian's smile didn't falter. And what am I? A predator who learned to smile first. Clever, he leaned back. But you're wrong about one thing. I'm not the predator in this family. Valerio is. He's the one who breaks people, who destroys anyone who threatens his control. I'm just trying to survive him. By stealing millions and framing my father. Your father stole from us, Julian said, patiently. The evidence was clear. Valerio chose to protect him by marrying you, because he wanted you, not to save your father, to own you. He doesn't own me, doesn't he? Julian's eyes were kind, pitying. You're in his house, wearing his ring, investigating his enemies, sleeping in his bed. What part of you isn't his, Althea? I didn't answer, because just few days ago, the answer would have been everything. Now, I wasn't sure. Valerio returned 40 minutes later, his expression unreadable. We have Julia, he said. She's being transported back here. She tried to get on a boat to Croatia. Had a bag packed with cash and 2 passports. Julian stood. Then she was working alone. Running because Althea exposed her. No, Valerio's voice was flat. She was running because you told her to. Because your plan failed and you needed a convenient culprit. That's insane, is it? Valerio moved closer to his brother. Julia's been with me for 8 years. She's loyal, competent, careful. She doesn't run unless she's terrified. And the only thing that terrifies someone that loyal is realizing their protection has been pulled. I didn't. You told her Althea had proof. Told her the council would vote for investigation. Told her she was exposed. Valerio's voice was quiet, lethal. And you promised her safety if she ran. A boat, money, new identity. Everything she'd need to disappear. Because once she was gone, she couldn't testify. Couldn't confirm who really gave the orders. Julian's smile finally cracked. You have no proof of that. I have her phone records. Valerio lifted the tablet. Dante's tech team mirrored Julia's communications the moment Althea flagged her last night. She didn't even know. Calls to your private number, texts referencing the plan, financial transfers from accounts you control. He looked at his brother. You are sloppy, Julian. Arrogant. You thought charm would save you. It won't. The room was silent. Julian looked around the table, saw no allies, no escape. His expression changed. The gentle mask fell away, replaced by something cold and calculating. Fine. His voice was different now, harder. You want truth? Here it is. Yes, I ran the shadow network. Yes, I used Julia to hide it. Yes, I engineered the shipment hit to trigger the pact and force you to show weakness. He looked at Valerio. Because you're weak, brother. You've always been weak. Mother knew it. That's why she begged you to protect me, because she knew I was stronger, that eventually I'd be the one this family needed. Mother asked me to protect you because she loved you, Valerio said quietly. Even knowing what you were, even knowing you'd do exactly this. She was wrong to love me. Julian's smile was bitter. Love is weakness. You proved that. You married a stranger to protect her father. You gave her access to everything because you were too busy being infatuated to see that she could destroy you. You let sentiment cloud your judgment, and now, he gestured around the table. Now the family sees it, sees that you're compromised, distracted, unfit to lead. The family sees that I kept my promises, Valerio said. Protected Althea's father, gave her the tools to investigate, trusted her to find the truth, and she did. He looked at me. She proved you were stealing, proved Julia was helping you, proved every word of your confession. He turned back to Julian. You're out. Effective immediately. Your access is revoked. Your accounts are frozen. Your properties are seized. You're exiled from family business. You can't. I just did. Valerio's voice was cold. The council will vote, but we both know how that vote will go. He looked around the table. All in favor of exile for theft, conspiracy, and attempted coup? 8 hands rose, including men who'd looked uncertain before. Julian had lost. You're making a mistake, Julian said quietly. Someday you'll need me, and I won't be there. I know. Valerio's expression was unreadable. I'll live with it. Guards appeared, silent, professional. They escorted Julian from the room. He didn't fight, didn't rage. He just looked at me as he passed. You think you won, but he'll always choose power over you. Remember that. Then he was gone. The council dispersed slowly. Dante stationed guards at every exit. Julia would arrive within the hour for formal interrogation. I stood alone in that stone room, feeling the weight of what had just happened. Julian was right about one thing. I'd helped destroy Valerio's brother, the last family he had left. Valerio found me. There 20 minutes later. It's done, he said quietly. Are you all right? No? He moved to the window, looked out at the dark grounds. But I will be. I went to him, wrapped my arms around him from behind, felt him lean into the touch. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. You did what needed to be done. He turned, pulled me against his chest. Julian made his choice. I made mine. What happens now? Now, we rebuild. Fill the gaps he left. Make sure the family stays strong. He looked down at me. And you get to choose. The contract is fulfilled. The threat is contained. You're free to leave. My heart clenched. Is that what you want? No. His voice was rough. I want you to stay. I want to wake up next to you every morning and know you chose to be there. I want to fight with you and make up with you and watch you tear apart problems no one else can solve. I want. He stopped, jaw tight. I want everything, but only if you want it too. I looked up at him, saw the truth in his eyes, the fear underneath the control, the hope he was trying not to show. I nearly lost my father because I chose you, I said quietly. Those missed calls, that 20-minute window. He could have died while I was. I know, and if you need to leave because of that, I'll understand. I'm not finished. I gripped his shirt. I nearly lost him, and my first thought wasn't regret. It was terror that I'd have to choose between him and you, that I couldn't have both. I held his gaze. I want to stay, Valerio. Not because of the contract, not because I'm afraid, because when Julian asked what part of me isn't yours, I realized. I stopped, felt tears burn behind my eyes. I realized I don't want any part of me that isn't yours. I want to be seen, chosen, equal, yours, and I want you to be mine. His hands framed my face. Althea, I love you. The words came out fierce, certain. I know it's been a short time. I know it's insane. I know your world is dangerous and complicated, and I'll probably spend half my life terrified. But I love you, and I'm staying, if you'll have me. He kissed me, hard, desperate, claiming. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. I love you, he said roughly. I've loved you since you looked at me in that conference room and refused to be afraid. Since you negotiated terms when you had every reason to panic. Since you kissed me like you were the one in control. His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. You're not my wife because of a contract. You're my wife because I choose you. Every day, every moment. And I'll keep choosing you until you tell me to stop. Don't stop, I whispered. Never. He kissed me again, slower this time. Thorough, a promise. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless and flushed and more certain than I'd ever been about anything. What now? I asked. Now? His smile was slow, dangerous. Now I take you upstairs and prove exactly how much I've missed you, without the world falling apart, without interruptions. His voice dropped lower. And then tomorrow, we start building our empire, together. Our empire. You think I'm letting that brilliant mind go to waste on basic logistics? He pulled me closer. You're my partner now, Althea, in everything, business, power, this family. He kissed my forehead. And anything else you want. I looked up at him, saw the truth of it. The offer, the future, not protection, partnership, not rescue, recognition, not ownership, equality. Then take me upstairs, I said, and show me exactly what our future looks like. His smile was fierce and possessive and entirely satisfied. With pleasure. 6 months later, my father's new office overlooked the port. Not the shabby administrative building where everything had started, but a real office. Top floor, glass walls, a view of the entire operation. This is too much, he said for the third time. It's exactly enough, I corrected. You built this business. You deserve to run it properly. With Valenti Security watching my every move, with Valenti Investment backing your expansion, I set the contract on his desk. Read it. It's fair. Generous, even. He did. Slowly. Looking for the trap. There wasn't one. Valerio had written it personally. Full operational control for my father. Valenti resources for expansion. Profit sharing that actually benefited both sides. Why? My father asked finally. Because you're family, I said simply. And Valerio takes care of family. My father's eyes filled. I'm sorry, Piccola, for everything. For the position I put you in. Don't. I took his hand. You taught me to see patterns, to fix problems, to stand up even when I was afraid. Everything I am, I learned from you. I smiled. The rest was just improvisation. He laughed, pulled me into a hug. You're happy? He asked quietly. Terrifyingly so. Good, that's good. I found Valerio in our office that evening. Not his office, ours. The desk was massive enough for two. The screens showed logistics, finances, security, everything we managed together. He looked up when I entered, smiled in that way that still made my pulse kick. How'd he take it? Cried, tried to refuse, eventually accepted when I told him you'd be insulted if he didn't. Smart woman. I learned from the best. I moved around the desk, settled into his lap. Dante said Julia's trial concluded. She took the plea. 20 years. She'll be out in 12 with good behavior. His arms wrapped around me. Julian's still in Malta, trying to build something there, failing from what I hear. Do you miss him? Every day, his voice was quiet. But I'd make the same choice again. I kissed his jaw. I know. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the port, over the empire we'd built together, protected together, would defend together. Althea? Thank you. His hand found mine, threaded our fingers together. For staying, for choosing. This. For choosing me. I turned in his arms, looked at the man who'd seen me when I was invisible, who'd trusted me when he had every reason not to, who'd given me partnership, power, and purpose. Thank you for being worth choosing, I said. Then I kissed him, and for a moment, the empire, the danger, the complicated, beautiful mess of our life, all of it faded. There was just us, chosen, equal, together, exactly as it should be. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you don't miss the next Mafia love story. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Your feedback really helps me make these even better for you. Thank you for letting my stories keep you company. It truly means more than you know.